Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Gloria. If you guys don't mind, I'm just going to pull this chair up and sit down so I feel like I'm no longer there. Good afternoon. So, Jax, we're going to start with you. And I have some questions for you about how things went this session. And would like for you, if you could, to just start with an overview of each marijuana bill that was introduced this session and progress that we made on those bills.
Sure, and also real quickly, I'd like to give a little bit of perspective of kind of where we've come from so people can understand how historic this session was. In 1914, cannabis was first made illegal in El Paso. So it's very fitting that today we have Ms. Marissa Marquez representing us and in the El Paso area. And ever since the late 90s, early 2000s, we've had basically the same two bills submitted to the legislator at every session. One was an affirmative defense bill put in by NHTAT repeatedly, and one was a decriminalization bill put in by Dutton. Those bills usually died in committee, but sometimes were voted out. But those were our options. Until this session. We had 12 bills this session, if you include the hemp bills. So real quickly, I'm going to go over each of them, some a little bit more in depth than others. The first one was HB 325, and that was by Gene Wu out of Houston, and it basically decriminalized an eighth from a Class C, or I'm sorry, from a Class B to a Class C misdemeanor. It did have a hearing. Actually, no one testified on it, and it ended up that the author of that bill joined Representative Moody in sponsoring HB 507, which I will get into a little bit more. Then we also had HB 414, which was Representative Harold Dutton's bill. He's also out of Houston. This is the same bill he'd been putting in for about a decade, and it would have taken an ounce from a Class B to a Class C misdemeanor. It also had a hearing. There wasn't much testimony on it because it was paired up with 507, and in the end, Dutton actually ended up also joining Moody in sponsoring the 507 bill. 507 was a great bill. It took an ounce of possession and basically turned it to a traffic ticket. Originally, as written, it was going to be a $100 ticket. There were some amendments made in the committee that changed that to a $250 ticket, and also made allowances for indigent people so that they could perhaps work that off instead of it being a financial hardship for them. It did have a vote. On April 8th was the hearing, and then on May 4th it was voted favorably out of committee by 4-2. And for that hearing, there were over 207 Texans that came up to the Capitol to either testify in person or to actually sign up at the Capitol. But wait, you guys, it gets better. On top of that, we had email services, both through our coalition, Texans for Responsible Marijuana Policy, and also through NORML.org. And through that, over 15,000 people emailed their representatives and senators in relationship to this bill.
That's great.
Lots of support. Only 17 people spoke against this bill, and it did make it out of committee, as I said, and it went to calendars, where unfortunately it did die there by not getting on the agenda in time. It also had a companion bill in the Senate, as well as the medical bill did. What the strategy was there was get it in on both the House and the Senate side so that they can meet at the middle and perhaps fast track it a little bit quicker through the session. Because as you guys know, it's every 2 years for 140 days if there's no special session, and that's not much time for the upwards of 6,000 bills that a lot of these people are seeing. Then we had a full repeal of marijuana prohibition bill. That's 2165, and that was written by Representative David Simpson out of the Longview area. It had a hearing, and there were 171 people that came to testify or sign in support of that bill, and only 22 against. It was passed out of committee with a vote of 5-2. Very good. And I would like to say that this bill was basically the boldest repeal of marijuana prohibition bill in the country. It struck every statute off of the books and made it where you could grow it like a tomato plant in your yard. And it did make it to the calendar committee, but was not placed on calendars. Then we have HB 3785, authored by Representative Marquez. This was really a very good bill. It had a good list of conditions. It really drilled down into the nuts and bolts of how dispensaries and the whole plant cannabis program should work. And that was really the key, was that it was whole plant cannabis. As we know, there are many different cannabinoids that people can benefit from this plant, and so this bill did not leave any patient behind. And we thank you for that, for making sure that all the patients could be included.
Yeah.
The hearing was on April 28th. It was very moving and very impactful. Arthur Mayer is actually putting out the testimonies one by one, so you can view those online. The patients stayed there until the early hours. This day's hearing started at 8:30 in the morning. They were going to do all of the cannabis bills together. However, they ended up breaking the CBD bill out and hearing that in the morning. So the whole plant medical marijuana bill and the affirmative defense bill did not start their hearing until, I believe it was like 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. somewhere, 5. It was late, you guys. It was very late. And it did make it out of, it did not make it out of the Public Health Committee, because guess what? Our favorite person, Representative Myra Crownover. Do we love her? No. Oh, we don't like her? We don't. No. Okay. So that was the story of that bill, and I hope that this next session we will be able to make more of an impact for the patients, that Representative Marquez's bill can be recreated and go the distance, because a lot of patients, they just don't have the 2 years to wait. Also, the affirmative defense bill by Representative Elliott Neistat, that was HB 837. This is the same incarnation, basically, that he's been doing for the last decade. However, this time he did add a provision to protect caregivers. Previously, it was a protection for patients with a bona fide condition, and it also protected doctors from losing their license. So he also added to make sure that caregivers could be protected. That also did not make it out of the committee, which is pretty shocking, because it is a very limited bill that just gives the affirmative defense. So that is an unfortunate way for that bill to end as well. Then we had 2 hemp bills. One was HB 557, which was the cultivation of hemp for research purposes. And then we had 1322, which was for industrial production. And both of these were authored by Joe Farias from out of San Antonio. They both had a hearing on March 18th. Only the research bill was voted on, and it passed out of committee 7-0. So very, very good passage bill. The bill was added to the calendars for 5/14, but it did not make it onto the agenda on time, so it was not able to be voted on. But it made it to the calendars, and that is a big deal. That is the first, to my knowledge, that is the first cannabis-related bill that has been on the calendars committee, with the exception of the CBD bill. So that was really great movement there. So as you guys probably are aware of, Texas is now a medical cannabis state. Yeah. Whether we like the program or not, we are a medical cannabis state, and don't nobody tell us that we have not made some progress this session. We have gone from 2 bills to actually having a bill be voted on and enacted. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about this bill. So it had the sister bills, one on the Senate side and one on the House side. The House bill was voted out of the committee by 8-1, and it was put on the calendars, but it was not put on in time for a vote, so it didn't make it onto the agenda, same as with the hemp bill. However, on the Senate side, 339, aka the Texas Compassionate Use Act, did make it through the full process and then came back over to the House of Representatives and had a vote on the floor. So on the Senate side, when it was in committee, it passed out of committee 8-1. And when it was voted on the Senate floor, it passed 26-5. Then it came over to the House, and when it was voted on in the House, it passed 108-38. So So that was very good vote that now we can take and look at who voted how on this bill for future. And then on June 1st, Governor Greg Abbott actually called a signing meeting to have this law signed into effect, which is a big deal. He does not do that for every bill. So the fact that it took some center stage as relating to a cannabis bill was very good. There are a few things to know about the bill. So it's low THC, so that means that it has to be less than 0.5% of THC inside of it. And currently, DPS has put out its first set of rules. It was open for public comment until the 23rd of this month, so public comment has closed. And then they have to make sure that that the rules are enacted and ready to go by December 1st, I believe it is, of this year. I think the rules have to be in December, but then in September 1st of 2017 is when they have to have the program fully installed. And this bill is the most, in my opinion, limited cannabis bill in the country. It is CBD only, and it is only for people with epilepsy. You have to go to 2 epileptologists or neurologists that believe that you should have the CBD oil, and that's only after trying 2 FDA-approved treatments without any benefit from it. So this is the law that we have now. The rules that they're going to enact are either going to be a building block for whole plant or it's going to be a blocker. And our goal is to make sure that these rules enable us to build on them further so that in the future we can make sure that we destigmatize THC and make sure that people are able to access those. So that sums up our bevy of beauties, our laws that we had, and I think when you put it in perspective, you know, the same two bills for a decade, you know, we're really doing well, you guys. We're coming along.
Just a few more questions for you, Jax, and if we could limit answers to 2 minutes. Thank you.
So don't be verbose.
You can be verbose for 2 minutes. So with the new CBD law that you explained, what advice would you give to parents that are curious about this and how it could possibly help their children or other patients?
Well, it's strictly for people with epilepsy. So that's the first thing that you have to evaluate. Does your child or you have epilepsy? Have you tried 2 FDA-approved treatments? And if that's the case, then you need to contact 2 epileptologists or neurologists to evaluate you. There is a concern about the law, and we will see how this plays out, but I'll make this real brief. There was a lawsuit, and based on the lawsuit, it's called the content rule. You need to make sure that the bill says recommends instead of prescribes because it's a Schedule I drug, so technically it has no medical effects. And so people are concerned that because the CBD only bill says that the doctor can prescribe cannabis, they're concerned that doctors will not actually prescribe it because of the federal issue there. So that is one concern to have. So what we need to do is we need to kind of find doctors that are going to be willing to do this. And so I encourage people to get involved in patient outreach, not only with Barbara, but there's a great group called PACT, Patient Alliance for Cannabis Therapeutics, and they're trying to track and find out who will be willing to prescribe the CBD oil.
Thank you. Also, I know there are some legal CBD products out in the market right now. What can you tell us about those products?
People in Texas are taking them before this law has been enacted. I can tell you that. You know, there are different arguments as to the efficacy of these CBD products. Some people say that they're coming from hemp, some people say that they're coming from cannabis, and that can make a difference based on what plant that they come from, so definitely be aware of that. But you know, one of the arguments was that the CBD bill was mute because people are already taking CBD here because it does not contain THC. So that was one discussion that people were having. So people are taking it, some people are having effect, some people are not. I think it's really important to keep in mind when you're talking about intractable epilepsy, people who use CBD only about 20% of those intractable epilepsy patients find benefit from CBD only. Most of them need some sort of THC or THCA included to give it that synergistic effect for them. And in fact, some people on CBD only actually have a negative effect from it. So it's really important that we let the doctors decide what patients should be taking and not let our legislators decide. And that was one great thing about Representative Marquez's bill, was that it gave the whole plant option to the patients so that the doctors and the patients could really make that decision together.
Thank you.
Jax.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jax Beal.
All right.
So next, we'll move on to Ms. Marquez. And the first thing that I would like to know is, why did you file House Bill 3785? Can you tell us that story of what led you to file that bill?
Well, it came from organizations like yourselves. I'm Marisa Marquez, and I know I got a promotion out there as a senator, but I'm actually not a senator, I'm a representative. I don't want my senator to get all pissed off. So, thank you so much for having me here. I think I've traveled the furthest, maybe. Is there anybody out there to be here today? And so I think that information that Jax gave was very important, but I can actually tell you what happened in those committees, and I can tell you actually what happened on those House floors when we had these discussions. Whenever you get a hearing that late in April, it usually means it's the hearing of dead bills. That means they're planning for them to die in calendars. They're doing it because they've had some type of pressure from their communities, or that there's some type of concern, or they want to kind of vet the issue, but they don't necessarily want to see it pass. So that I think that's very important for the public to know what goes on when we're having our discussions as legislators. So if they're giving you a hearing that late, they generally don't want it to pass. The legislation came from organizations like RAMP, and then of course NORML, that worked together to come up with something that was comprehensive, that addressed all the issues of law enforcement, regulation, the HHSC, the doctor-patient relationship, and so all of those pieces were in this particular bill. I sit on appropriations. I'm the only Hispanic female in the state of Texas to sit on appropriations. I'm the only El Paso. This is my second term on appropriations, and in those appropriations discussions, we deal with a lot of money, and we invest a lot of money into our higher education, and we also invest a lot of money into our research dollars. Our medical research, cancer research, you heard all about the CPRIT, the Lance Armstrong coming on the House floor, everybody got starstruck. They put a ton of money into CPRIT, which is a cancer research element of HHSC, and then there was a lot of misinformation, there was a lot of misappropriation of funds, and so constantly you all, as taxpayers, are putting money into these research facilities, but you're not looking at other alternative methods, which is cannabis, which is marijuana, and all of the healing properties that it has. So we continue to put billions and billions of dollars into these medical research facilities and these institutions, but yet we're not looking at things that actually work. It's like we're almost making money off of just researching and just talking about it, but not actually looking for a solution. Which many people say that's what politicians do anyway, right? We create wars so we can just keep a war going and not really have an end in sight. Right. So with that, that's why I decided to. I think I was probably one of the last people they asked to file it, but I'm the one that had the balls to do it.
So what are your personal feelings about the hearings and especially the way that the hearing for 3785?
I thought that the chairwoman could have handled the situation a little bit better. I think that she could have been more considerate to the people that were coming so far to talk about things that are very personal. For you to get up in front of legislators and people that you don't know to talk about your personal battle with illnesses and cancer and other debilitating illnesses, I think it's very important for us as legislators to stop talking and to start listening. And I don't think that many of you all were treated with respect in that committee.
Thank you, thank you.
I do believe that there are some good legislators. I did see a few reps get up from the committee that were overwhelmed by testimony, that got up to go to the back. Those are things that you guys don't see, but we do. They got up and actually cried because of some of the testimony, and felt that we were doing such a disservice, and almost felt guilty that we were just now getting into the conversations about medical marijuana. So is it effective? Yes. Are they scared in their districts? Yes. Because there are consequences. I know we were talking about Representative Crownover recently, and there should be consequences for not allowing people to talk and treating them with disrespect and not allowing the bill to come up for a vote, but there should also be positive consequences for those reps that do stand with you, that we don't forget them.
That's right. That's right.
When election time comes, what we usually say is they did the right thing, thanks a lot, and then we take off. And then we're never there to block walk, we're never there to say, hey, we want to wear your sign, your pin, your t-shirt, we want to help you win re-election because you took a bold stance for our issue. We forget that a lot. And so those are things that I can tell you as an elected official. I'm now in my 4th term. I'm not running for re-election, but I can tell you the insights, and that's a big part of it. People are fearful. They believe in your story. They believe that reform is needed in the state of Texas. They believe that the state can save a ton of money. They believe that people will have a better quality of life, but they are afraid. They are afraid when they go back to election time in their districts that the overwhelming majority will be against them, and that they won't have supporters like you all out there defending them.
So what's the '1 thing that someone sitting in this room today could do to let their representative know that they're going to stand with them on this issue?
I think consistency. You have to be there not just when it's convenient for you, not just when your issue's on the table. Be supportive at their events, be supportive on other issues that they have within the district. Have close communication. You all don't realize how much our staffs mean to us and how much they do out there. Build a relationship with that staff member. Let them know that you're going to be there. That's what legislators want to see, and I'll tell you this: if I challenge you all to get out there and really get to know somebody in that office, you will see a change in your legislator. You will see a change, and you will see that they can come back and they can be safe in their districts, and you will see reform passed in the next 5 to 10 years.
So do you have any advice for what representatives we should target, or what strategies we should use for next session?
I think you all are well on your way. I think organizations like RAMP, I'm a Democrat, by the way. Is there any
Let's
Democrats
call
in
that
there?
a Libertarian, a Democrat, and a Republican.
Yes.
All get to the bar to talk about marijuana reform.
That's right.
You know, it is a very diverse issue, and you have a lot of support. What I would say is sometimes we get overzealous. I do too. I mean, I have to lobby my other reps on the House floor for votes on my legislation, and sometimes I can, it's too much, or I've said too much. I think sometimes we have to come up with the right strategy. We have to remember who we're dealing with. We have to look at their backgrounds, take a couple of seconds to know something about them. Don't just come in and say, if you don't vote for this, I'm gonna have your ass in the district. I mean, it's not, I know it seems like it's effective because you're showing your passion, but it's not always that way. Sometimes you can hurt your own cause by the conversations that you have with legislators. What I would say is, you all have a great opportunity right now. You have people on the ballot. You have people that need you now, that are going to be paying attention to you now because you're voters, and you are important to them. And so if you don't seize this opportunity, you will find yourself in the same position you did last session, which is last minute finding somebody to file it, last minute finding people to come in, last minute trying to push it through a process when you have 4 days to get it onto the House floor. You will find yourself in that position if you don't take this opportunity right now when you have them in the palm of your hands.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, one more question. Oh, so you said that you're not running for office, and I saw that on Facebook, I don't know, like a week ago, and I was really sad about that. But so what are your plans after office then?
I think 8 years, I decided not to run because I think 8 years is enough. I think you need to see your politicians, you need new blood. You do need new blood, so any candidates out there? Hello. You do need new ideas, new representation. I will be involved, I do love it. I did a lot for my community in the 8 years. I feel like I've done everything that I possibly could. I will be joining a firm. The name of the group is Forma Group. It is advocacy. They deal with PACs, elections, local elections, bond elections, campaign consulting. There are about 6 different tiers that they do, and so I'll still be able to be involved. Like just recently, we're working on a PAC, creating a PAC for doctors, so they can understand how to lobby legislators for particular items. We also do bond elections locally, so I will stay involved, but I won't have to travel so much, and I can be close to my family. I'm a newlywed. I just got married in November. Congratulations.
All right.
So I will stay.
Thank you. So next we have Zoe, we'll come to you. And kind of keying off some of the things that we were talking about with legislators and how to interact with legislators. Can you kind of talk a little bit about and give some advice about how to approach your legislator?
I would say right now, so the Senate is elected, the state Senate is elected every 4 years, and the state House is elected every 2. So your state rep is going to be running for office, and be aware that they run in the primary and then the general. So the primary campaign in a lot of districts is the most important campaign. A lot of our districts are pretty much set red or blue. And so the primary is where the actual competition happens. So what I would do if I were y'all is figure out who your representatives are, and then some other, you don't have to just stick to only your House rep. You can figure out who else is in the area, the DFW area that you want to support, and you can come talk to me and I can give you names of people that I think would be great to form relationships with. And just go to their Get Out the Vote events. They have a ton of these. Go sign up for your county Republican Party email, and same with the Democratic Party. And they should send out, every other week or every week an email of all the events that are going on in the district. And that's where you can go and just one-on-one walk up to them and be like, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm a constituent here, and I really liked what you talked about, blah, blah, this, that, the other. One issue that's really important to me, believe it or not, is marijuana policy, and I just wanted to get your point of view on that. And if you have a personal story, just be like, me personally, I have experience with somebody who has cancer, and so that's kind of how I came on the issue. What do you think about that? And the other good thing is kind of pin it down where, how do you feel about, not arresting people for 0 to 1 ounce? What do you think about instead of arresting people for 0 to 1 ounce of marijuana, we give them a ticket instead, so that it's really clear what it is that you're talking about. Because if you're just talking about marijuana, then they're going to be like, oh, I don't want what Colorado's doing, and then they'll
So be specific.
Be specific about the bills that we're working on. Yeah, for medical, you can say, I think that, right now we use a lot of really, I know a patient, or I am a patient, and currently I use opioids for my pain, and they're highly addictive, and don't you think that people who are in serious pain should be able to access this if their doctor thinks so? And so it's, pretty specific questions are better. And then don't expect to win them over in one conversation. It's all relationship building. And then also staffers are important, and a lot of times the campaign staffers go right into being the office staffers and vice versa. So staff is really important.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about the different roles of the staffers and how kind of the inner workings of their work?
Yeah, basically, the staff kind of depends on how much money each office has to hire staff, and if I'm getting any of this wrong, correct me. But a lot of times they'll have somebody at the very